It is really good to be home. So many faces that helped me along the way on that journey that you just saw a bit of. When I stepped forward and ran for the Texas Senate in 2008, it was a seat that had been held by a Republican for 16 years, a 6'4", cigar chomping, big old cowboy hat wearing Republican. And not a single pundit in the state of Texas thought we could win. Every newspaper wrote us off. We were just this quiet little boat rocking on the sea. But I had what was then Mid-Cities Democrats behind me, which became, of course, the Northeast Tarrant County Democrats. I had these Tarrant County women behind me. And I had so many of you. When I drove up to this building earlier, I told the team that's with me here today, Tatum and Lark, that I have such fond memories of coming in here and speaking to the Elks Club and the Lions Club. And I remember in that 2008 race that any group of 3 or more people that would meet with me, by God, I was going to go and talk to them. And it didn't matter if they were older Republican men, if they were staid, conservative, chambers of commerce. No matter where or who, I went to talk about why I felt it was important that we changed the leadership representing Senate District 10. And before we knew it, and after knocking on a lot of doors with a lot of you helping, we surprised everyone on the night that we won and turned Senate District 10 blue. It was amazing. And it's been quite a journey since then. And some of it, of course, was on display in my video. But I want to talk to you about a piece of that journey that for me was really a low point. And the reason I want to share it with you is because we've all experienced that. We've stepped up and run before and lost. We've supported candidates, we've knocked on so many doors for them, we've written our precious checks to them, and they haven't succeeded. I certainly know what that disappointment can feel like after running so hard. And certainly that 2014 race, and in fact that entire 2014 cycle up and down the ballot in Texas and all over the country was a real low point for all of us who care about putting our progressive values into public office. But we did not give up. Did not give up. We kept fighting. And here we are. But that's not the low point I wanted to share with you. The low point for me, actually, was when I was in the Texas Senate and we went through redistricting. And that's why you're all here. And that's why I thought this story is a really good one to share. You're here raising money right now to make sure that we are putting people into these state house races who are finally, after decades, going to give us a voice in redistricting. And all of these races are important, all of them. But I'm going to tell you, more important than the congressional race I'm running in, it's these state house races. And you've all understood that. And that's why you have your priorities where you have them right now. And I want to thank you for it because every Texan will benefit from the work you're doing here. As you know, you've got 5 flippable House seats in Tarrant County. Whoever would have thought? the infrastructure that made it happen, from knocking on the doors in my race and in races prior to that and in every race after that. Every time you've done that, every conversation you've had with a voter, every single time you have put a brick in the wall that has put Tarrant County exactly where it is right now. Pat yourself on the back. It's amazing. So back to that low point, though. My district was the only district that was redrawn in the 2011 legislative session, specifically so the senator who was in that district could not get reelected. It was a real low point for me. Going through that process, it was pretty lonely, honestly, because I have to tell you, I didn't see a lot of my Democratic colleagues fighting to make sure my district got protected either. And when the final vote was taken, I was left standing knowing that this district was not going to be winnable again. Now, that was disappointing to say the least, but we were ready to fight it, and we had some amazing people in this community who stepped up as named plaintiffs in that suit, and we filed a cause of action under what was then a much stronger Voting Rights Act. We went to the trial court, and the Justice Department filed briefs in the congressional redistricting, in the state house redistricting, and in the single Senate seat redistricting that happened in Texas. And they weighed in, and this was Eric Holder, by the way. They weighed in favorably on the side of the plaintiffs in the Texas House redistricting case. They weighed in favorably on the side of the congressional candidates and the congressional office holder plaintiffs in that case. But in my case, they agreed with the state. And they said that District 10 was not a district worthy of protection under the Voting Rights Act. I will never forget that day. I was at the Botanic Gardens in Fort Worth about to walk in and give a speech, and my lawyer called me on the phone to tell me about the DOJ's briefing. And I sat in my car and I just sobbed, because I thought, how in the world are we possibly now going to be able to pull this out? And my lawyer said, look, our chances now are really, really poor. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm going to fight as hard as I can. He went into the courtroom on the motion to dismiss that probably most judges would have granted before a 3-judge panel, 2 appellate, 1 district court judge in Washington, D.C. And he laid out the most passionate argument you've ever heard in a courtroom, brought himself to tears. And when he finished, Judge Rosemary Collier, the chief judge of that 3-judge panel, said, you know what? I like to see a little emotion in my courtroom. I'm going to let y'all stay in this case a while longer and let's see what happens. And after weeks and weeks and months and up to the Supreme Court and back down to that 3-judge court, lo and behold, the state came to me and said, we're going to put your district back together if you'll settle this case. And I said, well, but let me tell you why it mattered so very, very much. It wasn't about me and whether I could win that seat again. What had happened was that the entire amazing, beautiful community of Southeast Fort Worth, which is primarily African American, was moved up out of Senate District 10 and put up in a district in Waco, Texas, where they were never going to have a voice again. And the district of North Fort Worth, which is a beautiful, amazing Latinx community, was ripped out of this district and put up in a district with Jane Nelson in Denton County, where they were never going to have a voice again. And the responsibility that I felt and that my lawyer felt and the whole amazing team of people I had around me fighting felt wasn't about whether Wendy Davis could win that seat again. It was about whether that community could be reknitted together so that it could have a voice in electing who would serve them again. And that fight was so worth waging, because even though temporarily that seat went into some terrible hands, we now have Beverly Powell. And as Beverly said, because of that, we are going to continue to elect a Democrat to this seat, and because of all the work that you've done. What I learned in that moment was just to absolutely never give up. That the things that we're working on and that we are fighting for are so worth every ounce of energy and effort that we can muster. And it's hard, I know, sometimes. As you saw from the video, one of the privileges I've had over the last 3 years is working with young women at the high school and college age level all over this state. We have 19 chapters of Deeds Not Words. And these young women have learned how to advocate for change. And they show up in school board meetings and in city council meetings, and they show up in full force in the halls and the committee rooms of the Texas legislature. And in the last 2 legislative sessions, this group of powerhouse young women, and Tatum Zico, who's with me tonight, who's working now on my campaign, was one of them who testified numerous times in front of legislative committees. They've passed in the last 2 legislative cycles 25 bills into law. Woo! To them often when I have the privilege of standing and speaking to them. I talk about fear. We've all felt that, every one of us. And that fear that holds us back from doing hard things. You've probably all seen or heard that saying. It's actually from an American pastor, Robert Schuller. What is the one thing that you would do if you knew you could not fail? And he asked that question, of course, as a means of helping us to tap into our greatest dreams for ourselves. What is the one thing I would do if I knew I could not fail? But what I ask the young women that I've been working with is a little bit different than that. What is the thing that you would do even if you would most likely fail? Because in answering that question, you come to know the essence, truly, of who you are and what you're willing to fight for. That's a moment that we're all in right now. And these incredible, brave candidates who have stepped forward and put their names on the ballot and put themselves on the line, thank you for doing that. Because it's a scary thing to do. And I know it feels that way. And I know you're doing it because you believe in something so much bigger than your own fear. Lady Bird Johnson had this wonderful saying. You know, she was extremely shy. And someone asked her once, how do you manage to put yourself out there and campaign for your husband and stand for all the things that you do? And she said, sometimes you have to care about something so much that you forget to be afraid. Let's all dig deep in that as we go into 2020. Because we know there is something so much greater than our fear, so much greater than the fact that we'll get tired and weary and it'll be hot July and August of 2020, and somebody's going to be calling us and saying, will you please come volunteer on my campaign and knock on this door. We're all going to go through that moment. And we're going to have to collectively gather and remember why we are doing it. Because never before in the history of this country has it mattered so incredibly much. The other problem that we're going to confront, and we've confronted this in Texas for a long time, and we certainly feel it getting better, no question about it. But the other problem we confront is the lack of belief. We have a belief problem in Texas. But because of your hard work, 2018 made a big old giant crack in that belief problem that we've had here. How many times have you talked to someone where they said, I'm not going to get involved because we're never going to be blue, Texas is red, why should I bother? Or how many times have you heard someone say, I don't vote, I'm not going to vote, my one voice will not make a difference. That's a belief problem. And a greater and deeper symptom of a belief problem is hopelessness. And we're all working for the people who are in that place. The people who haven't just given up on the idea that their voice will matter or that Texas can possibly turn some of these red districts blue. It's the people who have literally lost hope that it would change one single thing. Because they don't think that the people who are elected even think about their lives, even care for a minute the problems that they're having, that they don't have health care, that they're working a minimum wage job as a single mom, raising kids. I've been there. I know how hard that is. They think we can't possibly relate to the challenges they might have because they've been laid off from their longtime job because automation replaced them. They don't think we possibly can connect to the fact that they just had to drop their kids off at school wondering whether they were going to be safe and knowing that their precious babies are going to have to learn how to hide from an active shooter. They don't think we care about the fact that their children have been in the emergency room 5 times in the last month because they have asthma so bad because we haven't done a damn thing about the air that their children are breathing. That hopelessness is our challenge. And I know we're going to rise to it. And we're going to talk to real people as real people and connect with them about the things that really matter in their lives. And we are going to show them that when we are in office and when Democrats are in power, you damn well better believe that we care. Whenever I start feeling like things are too hard and on our own we just can't possibly solve them, I cannot help but reflect on that night in June of 2013 when I had the privilege of holding the floor of the Texas Senate for 13 hours. And the reason that I feel hopeful about that and that I draw on it isn't because I want to go back and think about anything spectacular that I did. It's because I know how and why that day became that day that night became that night, and I also know that it did something amazing for all of us who believed that maybe our voices just didn't matter. And it happened because, for whatever reason, on that particular day, thousands of people who woke up, ate their cold cereal that morning with absolutely no idea they were going to wind up in the Texas Capitol that night, wound up making a pilgrimage from all over our big, beautiful state to our Texas Capitol. It was the first time in the history of the Texas Capitol that it's ever had to be closed because it filled to capacity, and still people came, spilling out on the Capitol lawn, up and down every hallway of the Capitol, every level of the rotunda, and of course, in the Senate gallery. And in the final 15 minutes of that night, went through a parliamentary maneuvering that was absolute, I'm just going to say bullshit. That 15 minutes before midnight, when the filibuster was called to an end, all those people who showed up, who came not believing that they were going to have any kind of impact on the outcome, who simply wanted to be there to show their support for experiences that they'd had and would probably not ever have again, but knew how important it would be for other women, women they had never met and would never come to know. They showed up just to be present in that moment and show their support for the women who were counting on the senators to do the right thing. But then magic happened, because not just figuratively were they there adding their voices to what happened, literally they did, rising in the Senate gallery, screaming with all their might, up and down every hallway of the Capitol, every level of the rotunda, and outside on the Capitol lawn. And underneath my feet, I could literally feel the floor shaking from the strength of unified voices, crying out for justice in the most beautiful example of what it means to live and participate in a democracy that I will probably ever have the privilege of experiencing. And what we learned in that moment was that though every person that got in their car and drove there probably thought, alone I can't make a difference, but I'm still going to show up anyway. One by one, before they knew it, we did. And we just got to see another amazing example of that a couple of days ago with young people all over the world who stood in a climate strike to say, this is our future, and we expect you grown-ups to do something about it. Hope too. And I know that when we wake up the day after the elections in 2020, we are going to be doing a hell of a lot of things. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much to Wendy Davis, and we wish you the best of luck in your congressional run. Thank you also to our very own state senator, Beverly Powell. And thank you to our hardworking Tarrant County Democratic Party Chair, Deborah Peoples. Thank you all. Thank you to all of our sponsors and to all of you for attending and making this event a great success. All the money we have raised will go to House District candidates after the primary in 2018, and we will be working hard to get those people elected in the general election. We would like to get a picture with all the candidates and elected officials and Wendy up here before she has to leave, because she has to drive back to Austin tonight, so we won't keep her too long. But speaking of raising money, make sure to get your bids in. Silent auction will go to 8:20, and then you can pay for your winnings. Also, there's a sticker at the bottom of one of your centerpieces. If your table has it, whoever's at your table, you'll have to come up with a democratic way of figuring out who gets it. But we have a door prize at the back of the room, and it's a Trump plunger with some toilet paper.
Oh my God, that's good.
Anyway, thank you all for coming, and please enjoy the rest of the evening. The bar is open, the silent auction is going on. Thank you so much.